Willie D Live.
What's up, family? For nearly 30 years, no one was held responsible for Tupac Shakur's murder. But in 2023, the tides finally turned. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a former Crips leader and the last known living suspect from the infamous white Cadillac that night, was arrested and charged with orchestrating the hit. Prosecutors allege Davis played point man in the murder that's haunted hip-hop for decades. Months later, in a bombshell court filing dated July 18, 2024, the Clark County District Attorney's Office revealed a long-buried 2009 police interview in which Davis, speaking as a former confidential informant for 2 years, not only allegedly detailed his own role in the killing, but reportedly pointed the finger at music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, then known as Puffy, as the man who allegedly ordered Tupac Shakur's assassination. Davis accused Combs of being enraged by Tupac's relentless taunts. The DEA and U.S. Department of Justice also released a report about the 2008 interview in which Davis claimed Combs said he needed to get rid of Knight and Shakur and offered Davis $1 million to handle the problem. Knight, still grappling with it all, doesn't mince words. I end up with a bullet an inch into my skull, but at the same time, everybody knows where $1 million came from. Pausing momentarily, he said, like, what would Pac want? What would he really want is the truth. I believe that if something smells like SHIT, looks like SHIT, it's SHIT. Combs has long denied any role in the shooting, and a public informant officer from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department told People on July 24, 2024, Sean Combs has never been considered a suspect in the Tupac Shakur homicide investigation. He has never been charged in connection to the murder. Combs is currently facing serious unrelated federal charges, including sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. His fate will be decided by 12 jurors in the coming days in the Southern District of New York. Davis, who pleaded not guilty to the first-degree murder, remains in custody awaiting trial, which is now delayed until February 9, 2026. His defense claims new witness testimony could place him outside of Vegas and 300 miles away in Los Angeles during the time of the incident. But prosecutors continue to cite his own confessions, most notably his 2019 memoir, Compton Street Legend. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Back in '96 in Vegas, after shots were fired, Knight, bleeding from his scalp, made a frantic U-turn and headed west at a high speed toward Las Vegas Boulevard. Meanwhile, 2 patrol officers on an unrelated call nearby had heard the gunfire and called for backup. They chased down the BMW, which had a blown 2 tires. Once stopped, officers called for medical assistance. I got out and tried to tell the officers what happened while I was bleeding everywhere, says Knight. Also, I then was getting Tupac out the car. Even when the door was open, I had to go over there, bleeding everywhere. Take the seatbelt off of him. When we get into the ambulance, Pac is funny as F. He cracking jokes. I'm cracking jokes. Pac like, shh. When we heal up, you know what we doing? That type of SHIT. The ambulance transported them to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. At the hospital, Knight was treated for minor injuries and released while Shakur was listed in critical condition. When I came to see him, Pac was sitting up. He allegedly said, well, look, one bring me a blunt. Matter of fact, bring me 2 blunts. And I said, you going to smoke in the hospital? He allegedly said, yeah, I am. Knight chuckled softly, recalling that moment. Tupac joking, allegedly requesting Hennessy too. Knight says Shakur grabbed him closer as Knight kissed him on the forehead, and the two said, I love you to each other. but that joy cracked under the weight of what was to come next. Before the second of 2 emergency surgeries, including one to remove Shakur's right lung to stop internal bleeding, he made a chilling request. As he lay in the hospital bed, fading in and out of consciousness, Knight claimed Shakur allegedly turned to him, desperately begging to be killed. He spoke with eerie clarity, suggesting that they could even capture it on camera, that he'd record a wheel or even lay down a song explaining everything. It wouldn't matter, Shakur said. Knight recalls them both laughing, but beneath the nervous laughter was a hard truth. Shakur believed he was going to be sent back to prison once the chaos subsided, a payback for the brutal casino beatdown caught on security footage hours before the brutal shooting. Prison to Tupac wasn't just a fear. It was a fate he believed was worse than death. "I'll die before I go back," he allegedly told those around him. Still, suicide was off the table, according to Knight. He believed taking his own life would bar him from heaven, a line he wouldn't cross. So instead, he turned to his crew and then to Knight. "Kill me, shoot me," he urged. Knight says he refused. "No, Pac, we can't do that." In the haze of hospital lights, beeping monitors, and heartbreak, Knight claims Shakur made a final desperate request to his mother, Afeni. Let him go. According to Knight, who was by Tupac's side as he lay racked with pain and failing fast, Shakur pleaded with his mother to help him end his life. Knight claims she allegedly gave him pills in an attempt to honor his wishes. The doctors came in and brought him back, Knight recalls, and his mom allegedly said, "Don't ever do that again. If he's having complications, don't touch him. Don't bring him back, let him go." It was a mother's raw act of mercy, Knight says, a final promise to her son to respect his suffering. Doctors trying to relieve pressure on his battered body reportedly placed Tupac in a medically induced coma and hooked him to a respirator, according to Knight. But the damage was irreversible. On September 13th, at 4:03 p.m., Shakur was pronounced dead. Hearing the events of that night, knowing that Tupac was shot up and then he eventually died, that still haunts me to this day. I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I found out that Pac had died. I was actually supposed to go to LA the following week after he died, right? Not knowing that he was going to die, right? I had planned a trip to LA around the 20-something, right? And my goal was to have a conversation with Pac because I was summoned to have a conversation with Pac, you know. Man, it's one of those things that really still mess with me to this day, right? One of the OGs asked me to have a conversation with Pac, you know, and what's crazy is that even though I was wild myself around that time, I was still wild. I wasn't as wild, right? You know, I still, you know, I had some things about me where I moved in a certain way that was, you know, I wasn't really like just reckless, right? Pac was reckless, you know. I would get into things if I was provoked, you know, and I would take it there. I would go all the way. But I had to be provoked. Tupac would kick it off. And I know some of y'all think that that's gangster and, oh, wow, you know, no, fam, that ain't. You know, the thing about trouble is, if you live long enough, if you keep waking up, trouble will find you. You don't have to go looking for trouble. Trouble will find you. You can be minding your own business, doing your own thing. You ain't messing with nobody. Trouble is going to find you. So you may as well reserve your energy, reserve your resources, and operate from a position of strength. Because when you're going looking for it, you put yourself at a disadvantage, streetwise and legal-wise. But if somebody bring it to you and you defend yourself, now, you're on a different, you're on a different playing field. You dig what I'm saying? But the goal is really, man, just try to avoid it because, it's that old saying, man. I mean, I've been hearing it since I was a little bitty kid. Trouble is easy to get into, but hard to get out of. And the more trouble you get into, the more you realize how true that old adage is. I don't know what happened. Wasn't there, obviously. But, Suge said that's how it went. I guess that's how it went. Now, as far as Pac mom assisting, I did hear something about his mama saying take him off of the life support. I did hear that she did say that. So, but the joking and stuff like that, and I can believe that because Pac was a funny dude, very serious, but a funny dude. So I can believe that he would joke about something like, hell, I've been in dire situations myself where I make jokes and stuff, so I can believe something like that. I can believe that perhaps, he would rather have died than went back to prison. I can believe that. So if Suge say that's how it went, I guess that's how it went. As far as Diddy being involved, I've been hearing that for a long time. One of the most, one of the most persistent claims is that Diddy did say he wanted Pac and Suge knocked off because of Pac's antics, right? Constantly taunting them, calling out bad boy this, bad boy that. But the actual hit that happened that night was not a direct hit. It just so happened the guy who he jumped was related to the guy who was, supposedly going to do the hit. And Pac got into it with this guy, and the guy that kind of sped the process up. So that's kind of how that, that's kind of how people are saying that really went down. And this is from Keefe D. This is what Keefe D said. This is not, a third party. This is a guy who was in the car allegedly that night. But now I think he's saying now that he wasn't in the car or whatever. Now that he's been arrested. But in any event, ain't none of this gonna bring Pac back. Pac is dead. His mother is dead. Biggie is dead. Baby Lane is dead. Suge is locked up. Diddy is locked up. Keefe D is locked up. All of this is just one big, sad horror story. No more talk.